What's up, guys? Today, I want to talk about something very important to me. Now, how have you ever been frustrated with the lack of solutions for transferring large amounts of data from device to device? I know I have, because back on Windows, when I used to use Windows, I'd have a file that I wanted to transfer from my desktop, let's say, to my laptop, and I'd realized that this file was too big to, send over email, and I didn't have any solutions besides plugging in a physical cable from one to the other, or like using a USB drive. It just wasn't effective. It wasn't efficient. And I wanted a solution that was wireless, that just worked. And upon looking on Google for results, solutions to this problem, I discovered that I just was bombarded with services and products that let you do what you wanted, but they came at a cost. You needed to pay like a monthly subscription, or if you wanted to transfer a file and it was too big, then you'd have to pay the extra for how big it was or whatever. And this is all really stupid and dumb. So, I want to talk to you today about SCP. And let's just go over the manual page for what SCP is. Not CP, that is not what I want right now. Let's do SCP. Open SSH secure file copy. SSH, this is important, but let's go to the description here. It says, SCP copies files between hosts on a network. A host meaning, my desktop, it could be a server, it could be, the Raspberry Pi that's running in my room right now, on my wall. And these are all hosts. So SCP uses the SFTP protocol over an SSH connection for data transfer. And it uses the same authentication, this is also important here, and provides the same security as a login session. So what is SSH? Let me show you SSH. It is secure shell. Now, secure shell, something cool here. If I wanted a remote connection to a shell, this is a shell right here. It's an environment where you can type things in. I think you know what it is already, but if you wanted this, but on a remote system, you could use SSH. So I will SSH into a file or a Raspberry Pi that's in my room, like I was talking about before. So I will specify the port as port 2222, and I will connect to it on Will as the username and the IP address, which is 242. Now I'll connect here, and as you can see, I am now in my Raspberry Pi, and I have this remote shell. So, you might be feeling like, hey, this is a lot to do. Like, you're specifying the port, you're specifying the user, the IP address, like this is all very cumbersome. How would I do this in a more succinct way? Well, I can show you. I could just type in pi instead, and it does the same thing. Now, how does this work? In my home directory, I have a directory called .sh, and in this directory, I have a file called config. Now you can see here in this file, I specify my host as pi. That's the word that I just typed in to get that secure connection, secure shell. Now the host name is the IP address that you're connecting to. This is local, but it could also be a server that's not in your local area network. It could also be somewhere else in the world. So yeah, that's the host name, and then we have the port specifying it to 2222, and we also have the user. Now, once you have this in your config file in your .sh directory, that's in your home directory, then you can type in SSH pi. Now you can also use this for SCP. Now we'll get into SCP now. We have this command, might look familiar. And how do we use this? Well, as you can see, we already have a file called transfer me. There's nothing in it. Let me show you. There's nothing in it. It's just an empty file. But let's say we wanted to transfer this across to another device. Well, we do that by first typing in SCP, and then much like SSH, we use the destination. And this can be an alias, this can be, the IP address with the port specified and all that as well. It's the same syntax. But we want a destination path as well. We're basically saying, hey, this is the place that this is the host that I want, But where do I want it in that file system of the host? Well, we put a colon to separate the host from the path, and then we specify the path. In this case, I just want it to be in the path, the home directory. Now you're like, this is great, but we're not specifying what file we want to have transferred. So in order to do that, we actually put in the file before we put in the destination. So we have the source, we have the destination path, and all is good. If we do this, oh, it's called transfer me. If we do this, we can see that it transferred, and if we ssh pi and we ls, we can see that transfer me is right there. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to remove transfer me, and I will do something else here. You can see that this works, but it's all very you might not be able to take away a lot from this. So I'm going to expand this actually and show you exactly what I'm doing. And for that, I can use an absolute path. This doesn't just have to be a relative path to the file. And then we could do the full destination instead of just the alias. So I'm going to do will at 10.0.0.242. And we're going to do colon to specify the path here. So we're just going to do the home, and then we're going to hit enter, and that's not going to work. Why is that not going to work? Because by default it uses port 22, just like SSH. SSH also uses this port by default, but we don't have a default port here. This might work for you, but for me, I have changed the port and I have made it 2222. Now you're going to see here, you might notice that the P is now capital. I don't know why, but SSH uses a lowercase p, SCP, it uses an uppercase P. So that's just a distinction that I thought should be pointed out here. Now if we hit enter, we can see that we have now transferred this file. And if I go into my Pi, again, it's back here. So I'm going to remove that. Transfer me. This is great. We now have a proper way of transferring files. And not only can we transfer files from a source to a destination to a remote host, we can also transfer files from a remote host to our file system here. So if I go into Pi and then I make a file from Pi, we now have a file called from Pi. Where is that? There it is. I'm going to go into my host system here, my desktop, and I will type in SCP, and now I will specify the source, which is my Pi, and it's going to be, it's going to be transfer, it's going to be from Pi. That is the file that I just made on the Raspberry Pi, and I want to put it, we'll just say here. The dot stands for this directory, this current directory. Now we copy it over. I don't get an output, but as you can see here, I now have that from Pi file. So we've covered transferring files from this device to a server. We've covered transferring files from a server to this device. But what if it's a directory? Not all of the things that you're going to transfer are going to be directories, or not going to be files, I should say. They're going to be directories that have multiple files, and in this case, let me introduce you to the -r option. So let's say I have a directory called D, and inside D, I have touch 1, 2, 3. I have all of these files in my directory now. How do I transfer stuff from D to my server? That's very simple. We can do tar cvf create verbose in the file name. We're gonna call it d.tar.gz, and we're going to zip up D. Now it's one file. Now you can transfer it just like any other file, but that's dumb. You don't want to do that, right? You don't want to have to zip it up, and then maybe if it's a very big file and you want to save transfer speeds by compressing it first. That's valid. But I don't want to do that. I just want to transfer over the directory. And in order to do that, we use the -R option. Now we do -R. We want to transfer this over to the Raspberry Pi. And we choose D as our source. And then we choose Pi at its home, the home directory on the Raspberry Pi. Still, the username is Will. The IP address is the same. I'm just using the alias Pi. And we do that, and you can see here that we've transferred over all 3 of those files. Now, if we SSH into Pi now, we see we have D as the directory. And we have our 1, 2, 3 files. Awesome. Oh, remove directory D. This won't work because it's full, right? It's not empty. So actually we have to remove -RF D, and that'll remove it for us. So yeah, I think that's all I want to cover here. We transferred files from a device to another device. We retrieved files from a device to our own device. We covered zipping files. That's another thing. We also covered using the -R option to figure out what directories, or to transfer directories, not just files, but directories from a device to another device as well. So now that you have that knowledge, use it for good, I guess. Yeah, thank you for watching. See you guys again. Bye.